Today we're going to discuss the Ontario XM-1 knife, the military tactical model. Things that I like about this knife, things that I don't like about this knife thing, and overall the things that might need improvement. I found a lot of videos online that basically cheered this knife for being so amazing, so perfect. So I was really interested to get my hands on it, especially considering this is not a cheap knife. When it came out, its MSRP price was 250, and cheapest you could find on Blade HQ, this was sold for $155 and up to $200 to other online shops. So my expectations were pretty high for this tactical design knife that has this awesome Bill Hersey like drop point shape. Overall, the blade length is 3.37 inch, 8.5 centimeters long, with 0.19 inch thickness, 5 millimeter thick, made with a premium N690 steel, made in Italy. It's a 6.3 ounce, 179 gram knife. The handle length 4.6 inches, made from an aluminum. However, it's got pretty thick 0.84 inch handles, 21.4 millimeters length. And how thick is that? Let me show you my other thick knives, Buck Strider or the giant Cold Steel 4 Max. This knife is much thicker than these guys. So what are my thoughts overall? Now, I really like the blade shape and blade design. Some online references said this here, this empty space is maybe you could put some string to attach it for some super tactical use, but I find it laughable. This is just simply, this is extra material that was removed either for ergonomics or just to save money, because a lot of money goes in the blade. I would say blade is the most expensive part in any knife, so any little bits of blade you could save, that's extra saving of the money. Things that I don't like about this knife, other than it's at first it feels okay when you hold it, but the more you hold it, more you play, it just feels it's unnecessarily thick. There is enough jimping on it. Liner locks open up. It's easy to close it and open. However, the liner locks seem quite thin, and one of my favorite YouTube knife reviewers, Vinny Villi, who put this knife into extreme tests, he was easily able to bend this liner lock. So basically liner lock failed after a few tests, and there was blade play horizontal up and down, and it proved my point. This liner lock is way too thin, it's too easy to bend, and maybe after all this knife is not designed for a super heavy tactical use. Maybe this is a knife for a light to medium tactical use. Another important point I wanted to mention, and I have to mention, this knife is a not cheap knife. And when you make knives and you're asking $250 for it, when I took it apart, I was very upset to notice that this knife came with these cheap Teflon plastic washers. So basically I had to take the knife apart and replace it with much better phosphorus bronze premium washers. Now, when you pay for a knife over 150 bucks, the expectations is that at least the knife maker, the company that produces, could put better quality washers, because washers, that's basically your opening closing, and as much as you open and close, the Teflons will fail on you on second year, maybe third year, or with heavy use and everyday flipping. Maybe every year you might need to change Teflons, but bronze phosphorus washers, those could last you up to 10 years, maybe 15 years. That's the difference. And those bronze phosphorus washers, they're, if you buy them just a pair from, you can buy them $4 or $5 online from a good quality seller. These guys buy them in bunch and bulk, so I don't see any reason they could not include that. The the pivot and other screws, they seem kind of a cheap material, little bit force you apply, you see it leaves little marks, so that means it's a very low quality. Putting this knife together, it was a constant exercise between tightening your pivot and the other screws and finding heavy balance to get to perfect centering. Now I could not get to perfect centering, but the blade does not touch the left or the right side, so it's as perfect as it would get. And I'm not too happy about it, because on all my other high-end knives, with the first time opening it, putting it together, cleaning it, I can get perfect blade centering, factory perfect, but not with this guy. And after a few tries I just gave up. This was good enough. It's a tip down carry with this super light and does not look of a great quality or design of pocket clip that you can move to the other side. But with such a thick knife that has such a big gap here, you can easily, if some materials get in your pocket and you're carrying it, it will open with this. Even though detent's pretty good, it does not open with a swing. If any material gets inside, it will open up, and this will cause a great damage, bleeding. It would go through your muscle tissue like a hot knife through butter, not a problem. So that's my major concern about this knife. Overall, this seems like an okay knife. I would give it maybe 6 out of 10 stars in my book. It feels unnecessarily thick, even though I have small hands for a 5.8 inch tall guy. I would say this does not feel very comfortable. It feels somehow small and somehow way too fat. There are improvements that definitely need to be done on this knife, and hopefully at first they could start including some pretty good pieces and maybe get rid of these thick handles and do a frame lock instead, titanium frame lock. That would be a great change to see in this knife.